From a sales enablement perspective, I think all of us have identified that sales enablement can mean a lot of different things to different people, to different organizations, to executive leadership in our organizations. And in a way, it's up to each of us to not just help the company define it, but be able to pinpoint where we're going to make the biggest impact for the sales organization and for the company. And it's not always the obvious things related to making an impact. And to me, being intentional is about really being present and in the moment with every conversation that I'm in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this amazing session that we have. This is a live conversation all about sales enablement and being intentional and impactful. We're so lucky to have a spectacular leader with us, Carol Sustala, and she recently promoted Vice President, Sales Strategy and Enablement. And really, it's been amazing watching Carol's career grow over the years. I've known Carol for a long time, and just Carol, please say hello, and let's have you introduce yourself.
Well, good morning and good afternoon. Howdy, everyone. Carol Sustala, sitting here in Houston, Texas, and been a part of Powerschool for almost 3 years now, but been in the world of sales and sales enablement for enterprise SaaS software since 2002. And I think, part of my secret sauce, I'll start there, is I carried a bag for a lot of years. I carried a bag as both a strategic sales rep, as an overlay rep. I've been with some of the biggest accounts like Shell and British Petroleum, and I've worked with some of the smallest accounts. And I think all of that, kind of gives me a little bit extra edge when it comes to enabling sales. And somehow I ended up moving over to sales enablement back in 2007 from sales. And, just really love it. Have a lot of passion around it and a lot of passion around making a difference for each and every sales rep that sits out there in the organization. And the hardest job in sales, the frontline manager too.
Oh my God, I love it. Thanks for sharing. And thank you for kind of just walking us through that. And just listen, everyone, you got to give Carol a big round of applause and a big congratulations. She was recently promoted and she ran enablement, has done amazing work at Powerschool, and now has a broader responsibility with sales strategy, sales ops. It's a spectacular kind of step up, and wanted to, and when we saw that, we reached out to Carol and we said, you got to share your story. You got to tell us your secrets. And that's what we're going to do today. And so I want to just take a minute. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm the CEO and co-founder of SalesHood, and just love bringing sales enablement folks together and love bringing folks together to talk about what matters most to us right now. And today we're going to dive into how to be a high impact, intentional leader. And what we're going to do is we're going to define what intentional means. What does it mean to be intentional? It's a fascinating word that is really core to Carol's success. She's going to share a ton of lessons learned with real examples. And so some of you may know the stories and some of you are living the stories. And I think that's really what makes the community shine. I would love to start with this question. What does intentional mean? And why did you choose this word, Carol? And so I'm going to stop sharing and we're going to put the focus on you right now, because that's the most important thing.
Oh, goody. Oh, goody. Intentional is, it is a part of what I try to do in every conversation, truly personal as well as work. But from a sales enablement perspective, I think all of us have identified that sales enablement can mean a lot of different things to different people, to different organizations, to executive leadership in our organizations. And in a way, it's up to each of us to not just help the company define it, but be able to pinpoint where we're going to make the biggest impact for the sales organization and for the company. And it's not always the obvious things related to making an impact. And to me, being intentional is about really being present and in the moment with every conversation that I'm in this world of everybody Zooming, especially over the last year. it's really easy, I think, to get caught up in multitasking, checking messaging, checking email, checking your phone and doing other things while you're working. And if there's one thing that I've really decided about what my impact is going to be, it's that I'm intentional about the conversations I'm in. And I pick and choose which those are based on what's going on in our company, what's going on in the market, what's going on with the people that I work with. And really being present and in the moment in those conversations so that I can listen for the little things that are going on and identify, wait, is that a lever we should apply pressure to? Is there something more or less or different that we can do there that might have a greater impact? And I think the secret to being able to connect those dots and find those little moments and find where there might be a lever we can apply pressure to is being 100% focused on the conversation we're having and really think about, when I get off this call or out of this meeting, what is it that I wanted to have done and been really intentional about so that my time is useful and valuable and impactful for others. And see, that spans far beyond sales enablement, right? But the way I think of sales enablement is certainly not just some of the traditional definitions. It includes those for sure. There's a lot of training, there's a lot of communications, there's process and programs and change management. But really it's what are all of those different things that connect the dots that get us not just to our plan, but past plan.
Yeah.
Not just touching all of the folks in the organization, but looking at ways to elevate how our current organization behaves and what the future of our organization looks like to all of those folks we have not yet hired.
So you've done an amazing job elevating, yourself, your team, Powerschool, and even previous, TriNet before, way back when, Symantec, and your time at Salesforce. You've done an amazing job. And what I love about what you just said is you're really now kind of elevating, I believe, the profession, right? And I think while we take it for granted, being present and you know what, we got to show up, we got to listen, we got to be curious. It's when I asked you and I said, so like, what's the one word or what's the one thing? And you kind of paused and you really leaned into it and you're like, nah, it's about being intentional. Like, it really stuck with me. And I'm so happy that we're talking about that right now. It really, and I can see on the feed, folks are really, loving the reminder of how important it is to be present. And the one thing you've done beautifully is you've earned a seat at the table, right? You, from the very beginning, CROs, CEOs, CMO, your senior leadership in sales and marketing, like, folks count on you, right? Could you talk a little bit about those relationships that you've been able to really nurture at Powerschool and in other roles? It would be great to hear about that.
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say to that is they're not all easy. Some of them are very hard-earned relationships. Some of them are always works in progress. And there are definitely days with some of the relationships that I've built where, maybe I feel like there's so much more distance to go in building the relationship. There's so much more work that needs to be done. There's so much more that I can do to continue to earn a seat at the table and not just feel like it's once and done. Other relationships, we've all had them. They just click, right? You meet somebody and it's like, we've known each other or worked with each other forever. Maybe we've got a common connection point or lexicon that we use. And so it clicks, but they're all important. And, I think that in terms of building those relationships and how to do it and what to focus on, one, keep in the forefront what's important to the company, not just what's important to sales.
Yeah.
Understand capacity. That's actually been a really big kind of theme for us right now. Powerschool's growing like crazy. Given our market, which is selling software and tools to K through 12 to help really automate and drive a virtual ecosystem for the K through 12 environment. As you can imagine, during a pandemic, when everybody was at home, it became a very busy time for us. And so capacity is limited. And I think in terms of relationships, recognizing the capacity of a person, of a department, even at a company level, and picking and choosing what the priorities are and what really makes sense, trying to find ways that there's a win for both and not just a win for sales, because ultimately, we're all trying to do the same thing, and that's deliver revenue to the company. It's deliver value to the company, and we'll do that together. I would also say that whether it's, working with somebody on the front line in our customer success group or our marketing group, or working with the executive of either of those teams, I mean, this is really basic. And Eli, I'll tell you I feel like a lot of my nuggets are common sense, not always common practice, but really trying to remember the human being behind the title, and recognizing that we've all got challenges in our role. We've all got big, lofty, audacious goals that we're trying to attain, and really trying to be cognizant of those things when building bridges and relationships, and trying to understand common goals and what we work on together. So trying to take some time to invest in the human being is really important. And, text, Slack, email, and phone calls are all ways that we do that, because when it comes to a big ask for sales, something new that we want to tackle, or even a priority initiative or goal that has come down to me from my boss, who I see is sitting on the line, or from our CEO, it's very similar to the sales process, right? You are not going to get the customer to do business with you if you haven't already built the relationship. And so I think, being intentional about relationships, and sometimes even being more intentional when it's a difficult relationship to earn, and ensuring that, you don't just focus on the people and the relationships and the titles where you've got comfort, but you make the time, you evaluate your calendar. And this is something that I do, is evaluate my calendar to see, am I spending time with the right places? I actually have all of my meetings color coded, and they're color coded as, what meetings do I have with people on my sales enablement team? What meetings do I have with other people in the sales organization of any role, whether that's a rep or a sales vice president? And what meetings do I have cross-functionally in the company? Those are 3 different colors. And so I can look at my calendar a week, a month at a glance, and it quickly tells me, am I spending too much time within my team, and I'm not as outwardly focused as I need to be? Or I'm doing a great job within the sales organization and balancing that, but I don't have enough of that color showing me I'm investing proactive time with departments like services or success or marketing or, product. And that helps me a week at a time ensure that, look, my job works really well when I am balancing my time across the company, and not just, narrowly focused on where I'm delivering services to. So, I'll wrap it up there saying, when it comes to the seat at the table, I really think about it from the perspective of, what do I do? How do I build bridges? How do I balance my time? How do I recognize the human being and the theme within their job or company right now?
Yeah.
And nowhere near perfect, lots of work to do there, but it's definitely where I try to be thoughtful about my approach.
Like, every word you said is so amazing. And I think, I wouldn't underscore the importance of everything you said, right? It's sure, we think about it and these are best practices, but who are the folks that actually do it? Who are the folks that show up to meetings? You said something amazing to me last week. You said, when I show up to a meeting, like I'll take my hands, I'll cross them, and I'll physically demonstrate to people that I am present and I'm not multitasking. And I've taken that, right? Ever since then, like, my hand is off the keyboards, and it's a small little thing, Carol, but it's huge. I can only imagine the executives, how much they appreciate that. So kudos. There is one thing you said, which like we could spend all day just talking about building relationships, building bridges, and what it's like to navigate, all the different relationships we have. You said something fascinating was you color code your calendar, which I love. I think some future date, we should compare, contrast calendars of leaders, enablement leaders. So that way folks who are rising up in the industry can really appreciate, like how much time do you think you spend with the C-suite or EVPs on a weekly basis? If you had to just guesstimate.
Well, if I should take my boss out of that equation, because I spend a lot of time with him, both, in my role running sales enablement, but also the recent addition, which is acting as a chief of staff, for him, but also the extended senior sales leadership team. So lots of time spent with him, not always on Zoom or on the phone, but, working on projects together with, let's say, our chief marketing officer. We have a weekly call with the senior leadership team for both. In addition to that, my boss has instituted a great practice, which is what we call our stand-ups. And once a week, in addition to our weekly call with marketing leadership joins our stand-up. So that's not just a one-to-one, it's key marketing leaders, key sales leaders. And once a week, we're talking about what the priorities are, how are we working together, where can we get better? And from that call actually came an initiative we're looking at right now, which is the second half of the year. Let's pair people, senior leaders in sales and marketing. Let's identify by December 31, what is it that we wanted to have said we accomplished with each of these pairings?
Yeah.
And what will it look like when we did that? And be very, very specific. It can't be esoteric, like we want better alignment, we want better content. It's got to be really specific. And so that's something that I'm working on. What's the plan around and how do we do that? And it's come out of these great conversations. Our executive that is responsible for services, customer success, and support, we sync regularly, I would say weekly. And that can take any form. I mean, sometimes it might be a quick Slack. Other times, it's a quick after hours call or a part of a meeting. We've also got, something that's developed more. It's kind of organically grown. And that is somewhat of a chief of staff function for each of the major departments. And so we also meet regularly and are talking about what is on the mind of kind of sales leadership or marketing leadership or product leadership, and where there might be still, kind of what I call percolating ideas. They're on the back burner. We want to get them going and we're going to be moving them to the front burner soon. That team is also proactively looking at how do we get ahead of this? What do we do? And it's all about the connections of people and departments. So, in general, I feel like in all of the different communication venues on a weekly basis, I'm talking to either the executives in our company or their chief of staff person or, their senior leadership team. Many of them, I've built the relationships where we are able to Slack, hey, I need to ask quick question. I heard this. And then we've got formal cadences as well. So whether it's monthly, regularly scheduled, or, just kind of the reach outs, but it's a big part of it. And even when we don't have something to talk about, we make the connection and we'll say, you know what, we covered everything because we talked so much over the last 2 weeks. And then we spend some time, instead of saying, let's give that time back, we ask, how's it going? Happening? Is there anything changing? And often you uncover a hidden gem when you're able to move past the to-do list, the common to-do list, and move on to just building and nurturing the relationship.
So much in there. And folks, I hope you're appreciating, these are not like quarterly QBR meetups. These are weekly connections. And then these are phone, text, Slack. So this is ongoing nurturing. Now, how do you balance the leadership and all that relationship building with actually staying close to the field? How do you balance that? It's both are important, right?
Yeah, so probably everybody is in a similar scenario. We've all got our favorite people, and they're our favorite people because they like to communicate with us too. So it's easy to get your 5 or 10 or 12 and have, text relationships, Slack relationships, phone calls. They're also the people that you kind of commonly go to say, hey, we're getting ready to do something. I want to run this by you.
Nice.
But I will add on to that, something that we've done that is such an important part of how we integrate the voice of sales into what we do. And that's our Sales Advisory Council and our Sales Leadership Council. The Sales Leadership Council is new this year. Previously, our leaders were a role represented in the Sales Advisory Council. We've done that for a couple of years, the Sales Advisory Council. And being a part of those meetings whenever I can. Now, I can't always be a part of the meeting, so I won't say I'm on that monthly, but we also have a Slack channel for our Sales Advisory Council and our Sales Leadership Council. And ensuring that we recognize, this is an old saying, some of those in the group that have been with me for a while will have heard it, the truth is in the field. The truth is always in the field.
I love
it's
that.
Never in an office trying to figure out what should be done. So regardless of what project you're working on or, what else you may be involved in, ensuring that you've got, people in each of the roles in the sales organization on your, what I would call speed dial list, where you could in a heartbeat say, can I run something by you? And they'll respond in 30 seconds and say, you bet, what's going on? But using forums like the Sales Advisory Council and the Sales Leadership Council too. Those are currently being run by one of the sales enablement directors on our team. And she does a lot of stuff with culture, awards and recognition, our events, our communications. So that function is being run out of that group.
Amazing input. Amazing input. I love it. The speed dial, having our go-to people, being the true friend of sales, right? You're there for them, right? You and your team. And so how do you help your salespeople stay ahead of the curve and really be on the forefront of the go-to-market? Like, how are you doing that?
Well, the first thing I will say is my team is amazing. The sales enablement team is amazing. And I actually give gratitude every single day for every person on that team. I feel like we have just gotten so lucky, so very lucky to get amazing talent. And I think everybody has felt the feeling that sales enablement is often a small team of heroes. And they do a tremendous job, not just connecting with one another about what's happening in the field today, but staying ahead of it. One of the great things that we've done in sales enablement together with sales operations, like complete linked arm partners, we tackle everything together, is setting up office hours. Sounds like the most basic thing, but we do office hours together so that sales at any point knows I can dial in to office hours and ask a quick question. I can get my question answered. Slack is a big part of it. So these are all like, how do we handle the right now? And what that's enabled me to do is begin to step back from the right now, because it's in such capable hands, both at the sales enablement manager perspective and then the directors of the sales enablement org. That lets me look further out. I don't have to be as involved. Now, of course I do, because sometimes I can't help myself. And my boss has even said, Carol, I think we need to get you more focused on the future sometimes, because you can get so involved. But it's letting me step back a little bit and do a couple of things, which gets us ahead. One that is a passion for me, I am absolutely dedicated to, and is a passion for me, is related to hiring. So I very much think of our sales organization in terms of the group we have today, and what are we doing with that group to elevate their capabilities for today and tomorrow. It doesn't matter if that's training, it doesn't matter if that's time management, it doesn't matter if it's how we improve their access to information, leveraging tools. Very much care about that. But what I'm super passionate about is the future. And so that's everything from how are we recruiting and hiring? What does our college recruiting strategy look like? And how can I partner with our talent team on that? Our onboarding program, we just finished a massive overhaul of that and got our data back that shows from 2020 over 2019, our new hires blew away our new hires in 2019.
Ooh.
2020 new hires outperformed new hires in 2019 in every metric we look at. And those metrics are not, by the way, enablement related. They're business related. It's pipeline build. It's the ability to close deals in your first 90 days, whether you generated them or not. It's the ability to forecast accurately. It's the ability to close. And so we're looking at that and passionate about how do we build a better future with talent that's coming in the door. It's how we are structuring our interview processes. It's how we are putting minimum requirements in place for talent to even screen and not even elevate people that don't meet the minimum success profile that we've identified by profiling our best.
Wow, I love it. And you bring up data, right? I think you can't be intentional without data.
That's right.
And first off, congrats on the success comparing 2019 to 2020.
But 2021, I feel like it's going to be even stronger over 2020, but we'll wait and see.
Absolutely. And amazing. So listen, data, metrics, KPIs, I think it's hard for a lot of folks in sales enablement. How do you apply being intentional to kind of your analysis and curiosity around data and metrics and KPIs? Would love to kind of go a little deeper on that if you can.
Yeah, I'll tell you, way back when, coming into enablement back in 2007, it was about butts and seats, right? How many people did we have in training? Oh gosh, we covered everybody. That's fantastic. Did we do good with content? Did we build great content? Well, we sure thought we did. Right. So that's good, right? So we started there way back when, and it doesn't matter if it doesn't move the needle. It doesn't matter, if you had a smile on your face the whole time you were building it and delivering it. It doesn't matter if the room was full of people, if it didn't make a difference. And I'll tell you, one of the questions that we include in our surveys that I feel like is really important when we do surveys, even on training or programs we deliver, is, was it important to your job? The content that you covered, is it meaningful to your job?
Yep.
Do you feel more confident in what you're doing as a result of it? Do you feel more competent in what you're doing as a result of it? If the confidence is not there, that tells us we need more practice. If the competence is not there, we need more training. We need elevating of understanding and articulating and doing. And so we kind of transition from butts and seats to that which I just described.
Yeah.
Still not enough. Are we moving the needle? So, now we very much look at which teams are on track to perform from a pipeline coverage perspective, from a bookings perspective. Where are sales reps above or below the watermark in terms of stage progression, in terms of pipeline build, in terms of win rate? When we look at transaction size for each of our customer segments with our new hires, for example, where do we have reps that are getting caught in a comfort zone and we're not seeing them hit the average or above the watermark in terms of performance? And it always comes back to what's going on in the business. Our sales ops team has built tremendous dashboards in salesforce.com that allow us, for every single team, for every line of business, to drill in and see what's our pipeline coverage look like. What are we forecasting? And recently, from a go-to-market perspective, we really, as a company, made the decision, our go-to-market plays are all about how we instead focus on pitching something, how we rise up and meet the need of K through 12 schools in this crazy, hybrid remote learning time. How do we rise up and do a better job changing the conversation and talking to them? So sales play metrics are really important to us too. And we're looking at what % of our reps are using sales play messaging in their sales loft cadences. How are they doing in terms of reviewing and sharing content using our sales tools, but that's related to sales plays, or even more importantly, maybe the use of stimulus funding. So we get into the metrics of the business, and while metrics around butts and seats,
I love it.
I got 3 dogs out in the room. They're barking probably at the guy, UPS guy, but
that's life.
Yeah, it's all about the business and less about how many people were on a webinar.
So amazing, right? I love kind of the journey you just took us on, kind of where what we used to measure, what we used to look for years, decades ago in enablement, and now kind of the power that you have around data and the information that you have at your fingertips around all these kind of leading indicators. I think it'd be really interesting. You mentioned a couple, you mentioned SalesForce, SalesHood, SalesLoft. Can you just describe your stack a little bit? Like this must be complex to kind of get the data and to make that data available to your leaders so they can actually make decisions with you. Maybe walk us through that a little bit. That'd be great to hear.
It is complex, and that's actually going back to that hardest job in sales, the frontline manager. And so, we're even with what we have, we're looking at how do we make it easier for managers to quickly get what they need. So we use SalesLoft for prospecting. Yep. And with the pandemic, completed a rollout of SalesLoft to all of our field personnel as well. Often it's just used at the SDR and the inside sales level, but we've rolled it out to all of our field as the way that we drive prospecting. It really actually helped automate metrics around tracking calls and outreach, something that's really important, and the reps have just loved it. They have absolutely loved it. It's also allowed us to get really specific about messaging and taking best practices that we're seeing from SalesLoft engagement data and being able to really quickly share those out. Sometimes the teams don't even know we've done that. So in the background, we may be adjusting their messaging or what the cadence looks like, how we're leveraging the Salesforce contacts and personas to make them even more successful. And the technology lets us do that. SalesLoft, we're also using Shuffler presentation management via our SalesHood integration to share content. And we use the unique URL that customized collateral in Shuffler by popping it into SalesLoft. And then we see engagement data come back to us on that too. SalesHood is absolutely the one place reps go. We use it for everything from job aids to the connection to our customer facing collateral via Shuffler, communication, stack rankings, manager resources, the learning paths, everything to do with SalesHood is in there as well. And then of course, Salesforce, all important, and everything connects back to home in Salesforce.
I think great. Thanks for walking us through that, right? I think, and by the way, thank you for the inspiration to do the integration with SalesLoft. We are loving that and connecting those dots for us at a systems level. And so you've got Salesforce for the contacts and the accounts and the personas. You've got SalesLoft for the outreach. You've got SalesHood, which really is kind of the source of truth for my entryway as a rep. And then you've got Shuffler, for folks that don't know, is a presentation management that we bundled in with our platform. And you've connected all those dots, and you're able to see the analytics, and you're able to see the metrics, and you're able to see what's working, what's not working.
And what's so fantastic about all of that, I mean, we have a long way to go. We're testing the new correlation API. Thank you very much for partnering with us. That will allow us to correlate SalesLoft and Shuffler all the way back to wins and losses, win rate, stage progression. So we're excited about getting that. We think that'll go a long way in helping make it easier to see what's most impactful. But a conversation that frequently happens, not just at my level, but more broadly is, hey, can we figure out how many times sales has shared XYZ piece of collateral that we know is important and our top targets, will be interested in? It's something that will help them. Can we make sure we're doing a good job? Kind of pre-Shuffler, we were in a position where we'd say, yes, we talked to them all. We've rolled it out. We've done enablement. Everybody got certified. They all know how to use it. But it was challenging to answer that question, were we really doing it? Now we can not only answer that question, but we can say, what does the engagement around that content look like? So it's tremendously helped marketing. They are co-owners and co-publishers of this with us, where they can go back and say, hey, this has really got a lot of traction, whereas this doesn't.
It's an amazing partnership with you, your team. We are so grateful. And so, Carol, I think it's been great to hear from you today. And what we did was we we kind of summarized, let me get this up, because we've summarized all these lessons into kind of a little framework. I think folks like takeaways, and I've learned so much from you through this process, of collaborating with you, both the TriNet and here, and then really kind of preparing for this. Let me bring it up and let's just see if there are any kind of final words here that you want to leave, because we're so grateful, right? And I think, how do we get the entire industry, every sales enablement professional out there, every enablement revenue enablement professional, how do we get them to be as intentional and as impactful as you and your team and Powerschool? Because ultimately Powerschool has had an amazing year. You've really helped contribute to the industry, to families. You've helped so many people, and you've been there for the world in this crazy time. But these are the six takeaways, right? Mm-hmm. Building executive relationships, staying close to the field, being ahead of the market, connecting the dots for your sellers, for your team, being curious about data, driving decisions with metrics, and ultimately deploying the right tools to scale. What would you say? What would you add? Or what final words would you leave for folks as they are kind of wanting to be more like Carol, because you're amazing?
Well, the first would be, just make a decision on a given day. What meetings are you going to have the biggest impact on? And ensure your calendar allows you to do that. These back-to-back days happen to all of us. But if there's a really important meeting that you know can allow you to help impact your organization more, give yourself the gift of being able to be present and in the moment in that meeting. That's probably number one. Number two would be, ensure you know up and down, backwards and forwards, what the executive team cares about in terms of metrics. They've all got their own metrics that they care about, but there's a common set of metrics that they care about too. And that's what's important to the company. And if you don't feel like you truly understand how does that relate to what you do, be okay with asking some questions. It is sometimes difficult to make the leap between a newsletter that I'm publishing or a piece of content I want to get out there and what that means to the business. If you cannot make that leap, if you unequivocally cannot make that leap, ask yourself, should you be doing it? If you can make that leap, really think about how would you articulate upwards to your executive team the difference you're making because of that. And if you can't fully articulate that yet, talk to some salespeople. And that's why staying close to the field is important. Talk to some sales managers. Ask them, what does this do for you? Put it in your words, please, not mine, because I want to make sure I'm thinking about it from your perspective. And often they'll give you a perspective you may not have thought about that'll lead you down a different path. And that would be the last thing, is be really curious, not just about data, but about what's on the mind of your sales managers. They know what's on the mind of their reps. They know what it's going to take to, get to the number. Some people they may have to drag kicking and screaming. Others they know they can count on. But be really curious about what your managers are curious about, and connect that mentally or verbally upwards to make sure, is that just kind of an outlier, or does this make sense? Is this a lever we can push, something we need to pull back on, or something we can do differently around? And if you're thinking about those things, you're thinking about sales enablement the right way. That would be kind of where I'd leave it.
Amazing. Thank you.